All right, so I did chapter 20, which was on disability studies. Kind of just a quick summary. It presented the challenges and necessities when integrating students with disabilities into the classroom. It really discussed how our society has kind of had been pushing people with disabilities to the side, and they haven't been, up until recently, getting equal education, equal opportunities. So it discussed all of the issues that come with that, and kind of just something to know exists before getting into the chapter is what the IDEA is, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And it was a law passed in 1975 that requires schools to serve the educational needs of eligible students with disabilities. So it just gives every student the right to a full education. So what also started in the 70s was the disabilities rights movement. And this was kind of bringing to attention the lack of representation of people with disabilities throughout history. So advocates of this movement moved to challenge our perceptions of people with disabilities, and they fought for their social justice and for adequate living conditions. And this quote kind of is a good representation of that group of people. Writer Billy Golfus said, "There are 43 million of us in this country, but we're as invisible as Casper the Ghost." So now this video is about the process of inclusion, which is just the idea of including students with disabilities into the general ed classroom. So they're no longer forced to just be in a separate special ed school, but now all students are to be taught together. So this is what this is about.
You're watching UNICEF Television. Children with disabilities are among the most vulnerable and excluded in the world. Their rights are often violated. Hidden at home or placed in special institutions, a child with disabilities often misses out on education. They grow up apart from their families. Parents fear their children with disabilities will be mocked and won't have a chance to take part in society. The World Report on Disabilities estimates that 1 in 10 children under the age of 15 lives with disabilities, meaning they are not unusual. Despite the challenges, many countries in Central and Eastern Europe and in Central Asia are making positive changes in their lives.
Everyone in my class thinks that I am a good friend and a good student.
Alexa is a satisfied and happy boy who lives in a healthy environment with friends who accept him and teachers who meet his needs when it's necessary.
UNICEF is working with governments to support education systems, families, and children to reduce inequities created by social exclusion.
When as many children as possible have access to quality education, it's good for the society as such, because then you enrich the whole society also at the same time.
Armenia, Montenegro, and Serbia recently demonstrated to UNICEF's executive board the progress they've made. That includes changing policies to ensure that children with disabilities are provided with quality, inclusive education. That means giving each and every child an opportunity to learn at their local school, with enough support to reach their full potential.
With the adoption of the law, we have made it possible for every child to be enrolled in school. We crafted and designed individual programs for each student.
Inclusive education does not require special schools, care, expensive materials, or specialized expertise. It simply means all students, including children with disabilities, should have the opportunity to receive individualized services and approaches to learning.
We raised awareness so that everyone understands that education of children with special needs is key to their future development.
As a result of these efforts, more schools in Serbia are now welcoming children with disabilities. In Montenegro, there's been increased public demand for inclusive schools thanks to awareness campaigns. In Armenia, through strong support from civil society.
Just imagine a world where all children are included, involved, where their talents are celebrated, where their contributions are recognized. That is the world towards which UNICEF is working.
Children with disabilities are now starting to attend local schools, make friends, and grow up to be active members of their own communities. This is MP Noonan reporting for UNICEF Television. For more information, go to unicef.org.
You've been watching UNICEF Television.
Okay, so even though that was in Serbia, that's kind of the same idea that we're moving towards in America as well, is that every student should have the right of a full education, and that means that we're providing each student with what they specifically need for their individual either disabilities or strengths and weaknesses. Now this video is from a student with Down syndrome, and I thought this video was really cool because it's just her talking, so it's from her point of view, and she really makes the viewers of this video question how we see people with disabilities.
Hi, teachers in Douglas County School District. My name is Megan Baumgars, and I'm here to help you with your kids in your classrooms with a disability or without a disability. I am going to show you how to teach your students the right way. I am a special person. When I was in school, I made a lot of friends. I was in regular classes in the pillar for support. I learned with other students in regular classroom. I became a cheerleader in high school. I was the first cheerleader in the state with Down syndrome. My cheerleading team went to state, and we went on to nationals where we won our national sportsmanship award in Washington, D.C. Since I've been out of high school, I was a fashion model in a Global Down Syndrome Foundation fashion show, and I used to work at a Mile High Down Syndrome Association where I help them with events. I now go to the Bridge program in Highlands Ranch where I'm learning how to be a public speaker. I have a lot of skills. I have a lot of dreams. What I want to say is to you, don't limit me. Don't limit me by thinking that I can't learn in your classroom. Don't limit me by thinking that I will always need someone to help me. Don't limit me by having low expectations for me. Include me in all your students in your circle of learning while you are planning for my world-class education. Think about how I have the same needs as our students. We all need life skills, we all need work skills. I need 4 years to teach me skills, beyond reading and math. Teach me how to learn, teach me how to act. Think about what I need to know to be able to do when I leave school. Help me learn to be independent in class. Help me learn to be independent with friends. Help me learn to be independent and safe when around our school. Teach me to be independent so I can become an independent adult. I need to work independently. I need to speak up for myself. Don't limit me by teaching me to depend on others. Teach me respect, because respect is give and take. Hold me to the same behavior, expectations as others in your classroom. Teach me how to behave and excel in your class. Don't limit me by making me class mascot. Teach me what you expect from me. Set high expectations, not impossible expectations. There is a difference, you know. You will learn a lot from me. Good teachers teach and and learn with their students. I will teach you a lot about yourself. I will teach your students about people with a disability. And if you don't limit me, we will teach our school how to be an inclusive community. You, my teacher, are the person who's going to teach me power, passion, love, and independence. And I will become a powerful, passionate, loving, and independent adult. So please don't limit me. My name is Megan Baumgart. Thank you for your time today. Have a wonderful new school year.
Okay, so that just kind of showed that we need to set high expectations for these students and not, like she said, limit them to kind of putting them in a box and thinking that they're not capable of even being independent. I actually have a cousin who has a disability, and typically someone with his disability, I forget what exactly it is, I haven't seen them in a long time, but he normally would have had to stay with his parents for his whole life, but he does live independently, lives on his own, has a job. So we need to push these students to have high expectations for themselves. So another thing that the chapter talked about was humanities-based disability studies. And this seeks to understand all the different disabilities and also seeks to empower and advocate for equality in identity, education, representation, sexuality, employment, and religion. And then later in the chapter, they talked about this creative writing class that used writing as a tool, as a way for students to express themselves, and it was a mixed class of students with disabilities and students without any disabilities. And together they sought to answer these questions. What can I understand about the identity of others who appear different from myself? What can I learn about my own identity through understanding the identity of others? And can disability, it should say ever represent anything other than a negative image? So this is something that we should be incorporating in our own classrooms. And writing, I guess you can do it in any way that fits your content, because this was an English class, but writing is a good way for these students to express themselves, and then they were able to see what each individual student struggled with and how they felt and how they identified themselves. So the implications on teachers, 36% of students receiving special ed services have learning disabilities. Because a lot of times if students have very high level, like physical special needs, they do need to be in a different classroom for health reasons, but this shows that a really high percentage of them just have learning disabilities or even other kinds of disabilities. So they are definitely integrated into the general ed classroom, and we have to learn how to teach and accommodate according to each student. And this starts with getting rid of our own kind of prejudices that maybe we didn't even realize that we had, and also working with possibly a narrow-minded curriculum. The teacher who was doing the writing workshop in the previous slide realized how limited his classroom was. He didn't realize how limited it was before, but once they started doing these writings, he realized how much he didn't represent the population of students with disabilities in his classroom. And then also moving into kind of the real world after school, it's still very difficult for them to get jobs. Only 17.6% of people with disabilities were employed as of 2013. And studies showed that they are more likely to only get hired as part-time and not full-time, which obviously would be really difficult to become independent if those are your odds. So I think that it is going to start with changing education. If we start empowering these students in our classrooms and they're growing up learning how to be independent and growing into independent, intelligent adults, then hopefully this starts to change the world that we live in. And we also do need to prepare them for the real world and not like discourage them with these statistics, but encourage them to change these statistics that are out there. That's basically it.